One of my therapy goals for this year is to work on my insecurities and develop a sense of self-love. Secretly, I'm actually really insecure. One of the things to combat being an insecure person is to work on your self-compassion. I think a lot of us are really mean to ourselves in a way that we would never treat our friends or our family or even probably someone we didn't like. So we spend a lot of time with this negative voice inside our head, and I think it's time that we kind of address it and do something about it. So, what is self-compassion? Basically, it's about being kind to yourself. I think it was Kristen Neff, who's like this self-compassion guru person. She said having compassion for yourself means that you honor and accept your humanness, which I really love because I think we forget that we're human. We're just normal people, and pain and heartache and all these emotions that we feel inside of ourselves that we beat ourselves up about is part of a human existence. And if we didn't have it, we would be robots. Like in therapy, I say a lot that I wouldn't like my feelings, but they are what make me me. So you can't get rid of them, but you can start being self-compassionate towards yourself. Oh, and this was another brilliant quote I liked. Having self-compassion means being able to recognize the difference between making a bad decision and being a bad person. When you have self-compassion, you understand that your worth is unconditional. Your worth is unconditional. You're amazing, regardless of what you do. You don't have to prove yourself. And it kind of goes against everything that I've ever said to myself. I have to work really hard to get people to love me. This is what I believe. It's not true. And I am horrible to myself because I think if I speak harshly to myself, then perhaps I will work better and get what I want from people, which is love and acceptance, which isn't that what we all want? So there are many ways to deal with and implement self-compassion into your life. But today, I'm going to focus on one thing because I find self-compassion as a general whole to be very overwhelming. So we're going to break it down. And today we're going to focus on compassionate self-talk. When my therapist said compassionate self-talk, my first thing that popped to mind was, I'm a good person. I'm beautiful, like cheesy affirmations you'd say in the mirror, but that's not necessarily what we're talking about. So let's discuss it. So I've got 4 steps to incorporating self-compassionate talk into your life. Number 1, awareness. I think for a lot of us, we're very unaware of our inner dialogue throughout the day. It's something, we have a lot of thoughts. It's something that just keeps happening over and over again. So practicing awareness and just becoming aware of the things you're saying when you're feeling down is really important because then you can understand how to combat it and what to change in your brain. Spend a few weeks documenting your negative self-talk and write it down. One way to really tune into yourself is to be mindful. Being mindful is just being aware of the present moment right now as it is. So notice your senses. That's the best one for me to kind of come into the present moment. And also meditation. 2 really great things. So if you work on mindfulness, you'll probably develop more of an awareness of what's going on inside your brain throughout the day. Maybe add it to a habit you already have, like when you take a sip of water, remember to just be aware of what's going through your brain and come back to that. It takes a lot of practice because you've been working one way for your whole life and you're trying to change it now. It's going to be confusing and it's going to feel difficult at first, but that is what growth is. So step 1 is just to become really aware. Number 2 is to start acknowledging your feelings. Pause and just take a moment to sit and be with your feelings. A great way to kind of acknowledge your feelings is to realize that there are actually physical symptoms, so you can feel things. Acknowledge what else is going on inside of you. Acknowledge that you are having these thoughts and that it's okay. The third thing to do is to question your thoughts, which is something I'm still really learning right now and something that I found very confusing to begin with because I thought my thoughts were facts. We have our perceptions and then we put our perceptions onto the world. So I may think that everyone hates me, but it's not necessarily the case because I don't know what that person is actually thinking about me. We tend to take all our thoughts as facts, but they're actually just observations. They're just things that float in and out of our brains. So just realize that. try to turn that negative voice into a more nurturing one. So I like to think of it as a way that I would talk to someone I love. Some people find talking as if they're talking to their child self is really helpful. It all just depends what works for you. I think those first 3 steps are kind of the foundations for adding compassionate self-talk into your life and into your brain, but also accepting it, because if I had have said things before I had have become aware of my negative thoughts, I would have just written off and been like, this is just ridiculous, this is stupid positive affirmations that don't work for me. So the 4th one is to start incorporating compassionate statements, and these will be different for everybody because you all have different kind of negative self-talk things. So I worked these out with my therapist, and a therapist would be a great starting point if you are confused about how to incorporate it. One of the easiest statement and kind of a blanket one is, how can I make myself more comfortable in this moment? Another one I say a lot, thanks to my therapist, is, I am a human being, not a human doing. I'm allowed to feel this way and I don't need to fix it. So just take some time to brainstorm what those self-compassionate sentences would be for you, and then pick a few, 1 or 2, because the more you add to the plate, the harder it's going to be to incorporate these things. Compassionate self-talk is wildly important, but it's something that takes a whole lot of effort and constant awareness. Like I said, you've had years of practicing this one way of being, and now you're trying to change it and shift it into a more positive space. It's going to be hard and it's going to feel uncomfortable, but as someone who's still in that process phase, I think it will be worth it at the end of it. I'm going to link down below a lot of articles and references that I read while I was researching about compassionate self-talk and how to incorporate it into my life. Hopefully that will help you if you're interested in the topic, and you can do some deeper reading and understanding about how to be compassionate toward yourself. I think it's so important to really respect and honor yourself. The light has gotten super dark, sun is fading. I'm going to wrap it up. If you have any tips for self-compassion, please leave them down below, because I'm always open to expanding my awareness of things and my understanding. And I will see you guys in my next video. In the meantime, be kind and be compassionate to yourself, and just give yourself some love. All the light and love in the world, and I will see you guys next time.